Hello, my friends. It is day 305, and we're reading Matthew chapter 20 through Matthew chapter 21. But before we get into our recap today, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you're finding the yearly Bible reading program helpful, enjoyable, and also encouraging as we continue to study the Word of God and reach the end of our year. We're almost there. If you have not yet accepted the invitation and you're thinking about 2026, you can visit www.selflesschurch.org, and there you will find a link on the homepage where you can register to be a part of what will be an incredible community in 2026 of Bible readers, and we're excited about what the Lord is going to do in the upcoming year. So we'd love for you to be a part of the group. Today we're reading Matthew chapter 20 and also Matthew 21, and there are a number of things happening in today's chapter or chapters as we have read. Jesus is again just really bringing the convictional preaching and teaching. He is a masterful teacher. As you all have heard me say a million times, I think Jesus is the best at everything. Quite literally, everything he does, he's the best at it. And it's so interesting. What I've been able to do this year is see how Jesus takes the best of those individuals who have represented him in the Old Testament, and he brings all of those all those great qualities, and he embodies all of those things in one person. So, for instance, if you can think about all of the great qualities of all the prophets, whether that was Moses or Jeremiah or Isaiah or David, all the kings, all the individuals who did incredible things for God in the Old Testament, what we have in Jesus is the culmination of all of those great qualities without all of the limitations and defects of those same human beings rolled into one, because he fulfills, not only do I believe rather that he fulfills the words that they spoke, but I also think that he embodies the characteristics and the way in which those words were conveyed. And in that, we get such an incredible example of a human being, one that we should readily follow. And so I say that to say, when we read these passages, you can see that all coming out, not just in what he says, but how he says it, how he approaches every situation, how he addresses certain things that may be over the head of those who were not in his position, but he's able to put his finger on every single thing that is significant to the conversation and allows him to glorify God. And so this is insightful, but it is also inspiring. I'm just deeply inspired by Jesus Christ, and I'm motivated to be like him in everything that I can. And I pray that is our goal. I pray that, man, when we have read to this point, as we begin to think through the life of Jesus, I pray that your prayer is, I want to be like Jesus. I want to do things like he did it. I want to say things like he said it. I want to think like he thought. I hope that's your goal. If not, I hope to see you next year, because we want to get to that. We need to keep on reading so that can continue to be our mind and our heart and our desire. All right. So look at this. Jesus is teaching about the kingdom, and the kingdom is a major theme in his ministry. In chapter 20, we see that there is a parable about a vineyard and workers in that vineyard, and how they, in many respects, come in at different points in the labor or the operation, but essentially they all get the same thing. Now, whenever those individuals who have been working the longest see the wages that have been passed out to those who have worked the shortest, they feel like they have been cheated in some way. In verse 12, it says, those people worked only 1 hour, and yet you've paid them just as much as you paid us, who worked all day in the scorching heat. And Jesus basically used this parable to demonstrate you don't have rights or the authority to tell how the wages are paid. I am the owner of the field. I'm the owner of the vineyard, and I get to tell who gets what. Now, in verse 16, the purpose of this parable is actually brought out. Those who are last will be first, and those who are first will be last. And you got to think about this, because In this time, everyone is waiting on the kingdom. Everyone knows it's coming when the Messiah arrives. But there are people there who think they will have a right and a role in the kingdom over other people based on their own perception of what righteous living or righteousness should be. And what Jesus is saying here is there are going to be people who come into this kingdom, get in on this kingdom, who have not, in many respects, done some of the things that you traditionalists would prefer them to do, but they did the most important thing. They got in at the right time. Maybe they were sinners and drunks, and maybe they were, fornicators and wine bibblers, as some people say. Maybe they were tax collectors. Maybe they were lepers. Maybe they were whatever the classification would be. Maybe some of them were Samaritan women, or some of them were, individuals who were considered to be publicans and sinners. But the thing is, they got in, and they got in through faith in Jesus Christ. And when they got in, they solidified the inheritance that those who have been in are getting as well. And what Jesus is saying, if you all want to say that this is unfair, check yourself, because you don't own the vineyard. You don't own the field. I am the master of this field, and I pay out according to what I have said I will do. And so you see this very powerful proclamation concerning the kingdom, and we see Jesus' authority over it proclaimed. Now, because the kingdom is such a big idea in Jesus's ministry and is a part of his entire framework, he begins to drop these seeds that he's going to depart, and he wants them to understand what it will be like for them to live in the kingdom. And I want you to think about it this way. Think about what Moses did whenever it was his time to leave and depart, and Israel would have the responsibility of surviving without him. He refreshed their memory concerning their responsibility in the promised land. And that's what the book of Deuteronomy is all about. And at the end of Deuteronomy, you understand that he lies and he places before them these instructions, or these regulations that should sustain them in his absence. They have everything they need. Jesus is doing the same thing. Here he is walking them to the day where he will no longer be there. And he wants them to be so infused with his word and this knowledge about the kingdom that they have everything they need to live life after he has departed from them. Okay. So all of these parables, all of these lessons about how you should live, how you should serve, as we see in chapter 20, we read also yesterday in Mark and Luke. All of these things are what I like to refer to as kingdom ethics. Okay. Here are the guidelines and the rules for the kingdom. Now, as we look in chapter 21, we have just walked a step further, because we see now Jesus is entering Jerusalem, and we're reaching the end, and he has several disappointments that have come his way. As he goes into Jerusalem, he goes to the temple. Things are not right there. Things are not right in the city. And the cursing of the fig tree is an indication. It is a symbolic representation of the circumstances in Jerusalem and also in the temple. And quite frankly, what he does to the fig tree is essentially what he's going to do to Jerusalem. They will be, if you will, cursed and prohibited from ever producing anything ever again, because what they produce is never worth harvesting. Okay, and so Jesus has this expression to relay. Now, there are a number of people here who would not like that. They didn't appreciate Jesus's authoritative actions, and he's questioned for it. But Jesus continues to teach about the kingdom using two sons, one who said he would do something but didn't do it, and one who said he wouldn't do it, but he did do it. And, it just goes to show you how Jesus begins to juxtapose and contrast those supposedly kingdom people from those who are perceived to be not kingdom people. And Jesus is basically saying, again, he's solidifying this idea: who you think are going to be in the kingdom won't be there, and who you don't think will be there, they're going to be there. And so it's just again, man, Jesus is just good, man. I mean, Jesus, no, he knew how to lay these things out. And so I hope you're getting a lot of joy and insight and just excitement about around reading these things, because I know for me, when I first started reading the Bible and I read Jesus for the first time, like I actually started reading the Gospels, my mind was like, gosh, I've never heard or known this stuff. And to just hear him and see him and watch how he interacts and how he does things, it just blew my mind. And so I hope you're experiencing that same excitement. And hopefully it'll continue to carry over in the days ahead as you read the Lord's word. But let me know what you're thinking. What stood out to you the most? I'd love to hear it in the comment box below. Maybe it'll spark some conversation. But until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.